It's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's the glute guys.
Well, hey. Here's the glute guys. Today we got a special guest with us. We got Antonio Sapienza, PT, DPT, OCS, clinical director, and recreational runner.
Dr. Tony.
What's going on, guys?
Some people say he's the fastest man in the room right now.
It's because I'm the only man in the room.
You guys don't know, but after this, we're gonna do a 40-yard dash race with Tony and see who really is the fastest.
I mean, if the next time we're together, we absolutely should do that.
That might be
My
fun.
money might be on Aaron, honestly.
Low
6'3".
key
Yeah. Yeah, I might take Aaron in 40.
on a 40, like
I am faster than I used to be. I used to be very slow, but I haven't done a 40 in a long time.
my favorite 40-yard dash is still watching Tom Brady. How can one of the greatest football players of all time run like that? It's terrible.
Did you ever see the video of Tom Brady running like 10 yards for a touchdown? And
It's
then,
horrendous.
yeah, but then like as he's running, you just see a cheetah pop onto the screen.
I haven't seen that one.
And it's like the inspirational music. That is great. I have to look that up and send it to you guys because it's been a while since I've seen it.
Sounds
But
like a
I
good
love
one.
that video. But I guess to get into it a little bit, we'll start with some personal fitness as always. So, Tony, what type of nutrition or how do you, I guess, model your nutrition? What do you try to do day to day? And let's go from there.
I gotcha. So, really depends on what I'm doing. So right now I'm in the middle for training for the Jersey City Marathon. So my
Mhm.
nutrition is based upon that, which means I'm eating way more than usual in order to supplement that training.
Mhm.
Um, my carb cycling is way up. I'm on training days eating anywhere between 2.3 to 3.2 grams per pound of body weight of carbs, which is a lot.
Wow.
That is
It's
a
a
lot.
ton, but this is something I've done differently after reading a marathon training book. And I mean, my recovery from my runs has been better, performance on my runs has been better, energy levels are good. Um, so by
How
actually
many
providing the nutrition, it helps.
how many calories do you think you eat a day for marathon training?
So if I'm on a day where I have like a shorter recovery run, like somewhere around 6 miles,
Mhm.
maybe I'll eat like 2,500 that day, maybe 2,600.
Mhm.
But sometimes in the middle of the week, I'll have a medium long run at an easy pace of like 15 to 16 miles. Those days I'm eating well over 3,000 for sure, like 3,500, 3,800. I'm trying to recoup those calories because some days, you're doing that 15 to 16 long, and then the next day you have a speed workout. So you got to get that energy back in you to turn it around.
Now,
Hmm.
Tony, how far out is this race right now? Like, how is this? I'm assuming this calorie intake is going to change as you start to get closer to the race and you have to start to taper. So, how far out are you right now?
So almost 2 months exactly. So April 13th.
Okay,
So we're 2 months out now. Got about 8 or 9 weeks left of training.
okay. And then when are you gonna like change the calorie? If you are, I mean, change the calorie intake for this kind of a race.
So the taper according to this training program I'm running now is not a huge reduction in mileage. During your off week or your last week before training, it's only 20 to 30% reduction in your mileage. So I'm running anywhere between 55 to 70 miles a week now. The top week is 70. And there's going to be a reduction in that final taper week of 20 to 30% from that 55. So I think I'm still going to be hitting around like 37 to 42 miles that last week. And in that case, the calories will come down a decent amount because my average running will decrease, but I'm still probably going to be in the neighborhood of 3,000 calories if I'm going over like 6 to 8 miles.
Hmm.
That's full on determination. I mean, I personally can crush 3,000 calories, but I'm not training for a marathon. That's more so just because I like food. But that's impressive.
Same.
Have
I
you ever
love food.
calculated your BMR?
BMR? No, I mean, I've done it just randomly, like via a free website, but I never went somewhere and actually had it taken. You could do it down at Rutgers, which is pretty
Interesting.
interesting.
Do they have
Uh,
I'm sure they have a DEXA scan there too.
so yeah, I looked into Rutgers, their health exercise science lab. You could do lactate threshold testing. You could do DEXA scan. You could do BMR. You could do so many different things, and I've thought about it. It's actually not that pricey either. I think partially because you're working with some students, some graduate students. Um, but that would be something interesting to take a look at.
To me, it'd be sort of fun, like just to see really where you're at. Um, and also for everyone who doesn't know, a BMR is basal metabolic rate. It's how many calories you burn in a day without doing anything at all. And then DEXA scan is just something to see what your body's made of, composition, fat, muscle, bone, organs, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, both
Um,
scans are and tests are good for like in Dr. Tony's case where he's an athlete training because it can adjust your training styles and whatnot. Your specifically like Tony's calorie intake during a day can change significantly with a test like that too.
mhm.
Hmm.
I was always curious at what my body fat was. I have no idea what it is because
I use those calipers and I swear it's just, I catch myself cheating on them.
I think the problem with calipers is they don't account for loose skin.
Yes.
So if you have a lot of loose skin, you're always going to seem like you have more than you actually are. That's like what I want to tell myself because who wants to be such a tubber? But I guess that's going to be most things, even the DEXA scan. I think we were talking about this at another point, but I guess the problem with the DEXA scan is if you're doing multiple different DEXA scans with different types of softwares, you might actually get different numbers on each one.
You'll also get a lot different based upon how hydrated you are.
Yeah, that's true
So if
too.
you're hydrated, your muscles are going to swell with that water content, so that your total percentage of body fat will actually drop. Meanwhile, your total body weight will go up. So if you go into that DEXA scan dehydrated and your muscles are kind of shrank, for lack of a better term, because they're not holding on to water at the same body fat content, you're going to have a higher percentage because your total body weight is going to be suppressed.
I mean,
Interesting.
to me, it sort of sounds like in the morning is probably the best time to do it. So you don't like juice yourself up almost. That way
Hmm.
it's easier to stay consistent. I think it's hard to track how much water exactly you have right before. I mean, it's not that hard, but it's more of a pain in the neck than just going right in the morning.
I would say
Yeah.
if you're tracking it, it's better just like as long as you're going consistently at the same time during a day, like when you're test and retest, then that's probably better. It doesn't necessarily have to be first thing in the morning, but that's how I think of it at least.
Hmm.
I will say too, I don't think it's really something that's necessary for a majority of people.
Yeah, it's
No,
not the end all be all at all. I mean, that information's cool to have on hand, but then when you get it, you're like, okay,
like what do
Yeah,
I do with
it's
that's
it?
it.
like,
Like it's
oh, that
like,
was cool.
yeah, nothing,
It's like
demonstrably changes.
unless you're like a pro athlete where they're like literally adjusting every minute little calorie and macro and micro and whatnot that you're taking in, then
Hmm.
no, it's just fun information for athletes and people who train and nerds.
Hmm. But I guess
I was
steering back to diet a little. Did I cut you off, Tony?
I was gonna say if you're a better test at Rutgers would be either the VO2 max or the lactate threshold training. If you did either one of those as a runner, that could provide a lot of insight on how to structure your training program. So that would be huge, as opposed to the DEXA scan, which is just kind of fun information.
I think DEXA scan could be beneficial if you're trying to lose weight, like a little bit. But either way, all you really need to know is what you weigh. Honestly, like it
Hmm.
is, I guess, good to know if like how much muscle you're losing if you're losing weight. But
Hmm.
then again, you're gonna always lose some muscle if you're trying to lose fat, or even if you're trying to bulk, you're gonna gain fat if you're trying to gain muscle too. Just eating more, you're gonna gain fat. There's not really a lot we can do about that. That's
Biology.
okay.
Yeah, our bodies
Anatomy.
work as intended. When food was scarce, we stored it, and now it's plentiful, and we don't know what to do.
Now we're a bunch of tubbers. I can barely
A-
walk to the door anymore.
Aaron's favorite word.
Tubbers is a great word. In a land of tubbers, we have to have a word for it.
And
But
that's
Tony,
why God gave us Ozempic. But anyway, go ahead.
um, what do you do for off-season diet? How does it differ?
Off-season diet, I'll bring that way down. I'll probably eat more between like 2,300 to 2,500 calories a day. I'll still be running, but the mileage won't be as high, the intensity won't be as high. I'll be doing weight training a lot more, so I'll have higher proportion of my calories be from protein and kind of dial back a little bit on those carb sources for sure,
Hmm.
especially simple carbs. Like I'm okay with simple carbohydrates now, like bagels and bread and sometimes even chocolate milk after a run. It's actually really good for recovery. But those things got to dial back on them when the energy needs aren't there anymore.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I guess you just have to be a little bit more strict. I mean, you hear that with actually a lot of ex-athletes where they continue their same diet and then end up gaining a lot of weight because of it too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's what happened to me in like going from, it sounds silly, but high school swim to college. High school swimming, I mean, I was swimming like anywhere from 4 to 5,000 miles in a practice. It was like I was doing double practices. That's another story. But then when I went to college, I stopped swimming, and this was before I played rugby. I went from 150 pounds to the end of freshman year, I was 190 pounds. So that was a
And you
40
have been
pound
looking
gain.
extra chunky the last few weeks too. I'm just joking.
All right. You know what? I'm gonna go to the gym after this podcast now. Thank
Aaron,
you.
Aaron came on ready to bully. He's like, listen, I'm the fastest in the 40. Everyone's a
I
tubber.
I don't think I am. Like, if any of my high school coaches saw that, they'd be like, "Huh, not that guy." Um, I mean, I was very slow in high school. Like, I got a lot more, I think, athletic in college and just becoming more coordinated. Um, which is weird to say too, because I also gained a lot of weight, but I still think I just got stronger and faster. I mean, without a doubt, when I like sophomore year of college, I was like the strongest I ever was, and it wasn't even close.
Now, Tony, when you're switching from an like on season like you are right now, and you switch to off season, you have to adjust that diet. Do you find like difficulty in it because you were like you such used to eating such a high calorie, and then like like I get cranky if I'm hungry and I'm not getting like my like food that I usually get. What do you feel?
I miss the fun foods. Like I love carbs, I love pasta. Um,
Of course.
love bagels. So having the ability to eat those without having to worry about overeating, and you could just kind of just, all right, I'm gonna have two bagels for breakfast because I'm doing a 13-mile long run later and it doesn't matter. Versus like not running today, hitting push day at the gym. We're gonna start with Greek yogurt and maybe some fruit. And it's like it's a big change up. So it is a little bit shocking the system at first, and it's hard to get used to because it's a little bit of a luxury to be able to eat what you want as far as those carbs go. Yeah.
I guess transitioning a little bit more into like some of the running that you've done. We didn't think about this earlier, but could you like give, I guess, a brief list of some of the marathons that you've done, and I guess like what was good about them, what was bad about them, all of the
Good
above?
question. So I'll take it through last year's training year. So last year I ran the Lake Placid Marathon, and that was in June. That was my second full marathon.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great experience, the race experience. Very hilly course, challenging but beautiful out there. And then through the summer, I switched to more 5K training. So I really tried to get my speed up. I was doing shorter interval workouts, a lot of track workouts, less long mileage. So then I did, I think, three 5Ks in the fall. And then I also did two half marathons, one of which I paced my girlfriend for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was an awesome race. And then the second one I ran by myself and just went all out just to see what I can get as far as a half marathon goes. And then after that, took some time where, I wasn't training for anything, and then jumped onto this training block in early December. So it was last year was one full, two halves, three 5Ks.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
And
Now,
then
what's your PR time for that Lake Placid one that you did?
So Lake Placid, I did set my PR. My goal was to go under 4 hours, and I hit
Oh,
that. I was very happy with that.
very nice.
I ran 3:52:53, I think, something like that. It's 3:52 to 3:53. Um, and I was on pace to hit closer to the 350 or lower threshold, which was kind of like my second goal, right? The first goal was just get under four. Second goal was like, all right, if you have that in the bag, go for sub 350. But my body crashed on the last 3 miles. It was brutal. The last 3 miles are a ton of uphill. So my average pace per mile dialed back anywhere between 40 to 60 seconds each of those 3 miles.
Wow.
Gotcha.
So that goal went bye-bye. And I was just like, just keep your legs moving, just do not stop.
That fatigue
And
hits you
that's
like
kind
a
of the
lead
game plan.
balloon.
But
It really does. It's in that the wall when you hit it, very real.
for a
Very
first
real.
marathon though, man, that's awesome. That's like fantastic. What?
Admittedly, it was not my first though.
That
I
was
did I did one in PT school in 2017, but that one was just like run it to finish it. Um, and that one I ran with a friend from PT school. We ran it in 4:35.
Okay.
And
shout out to Sebastian.
Sebastian, I'm still gonna try to get him to run another one. He's still got to get another one in him. Um, and after that one, I didn't feel that bad. I didn't feel that sore. And I was like, nah, probably could have pushed it a little bit. But then I just didn't return to the race, until 7 years later, pretty much.
Hmm.
Yeah,
What
but
made
now
you
you
get
had that
back into
knowledge
it?
from it.
Oh, sorry.
No, 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 go ahead. It's
What made you get back into it?
I really enjoyed running, and then I started to challenge myself with more half marathons, and I started to get better at those. And I was like, you know what? I think if I'm, getting better at these halves, I want to give another shot to the full because it had always been a goal to hit under 4 hours in a full, especially after that first one running 4:35 and like not feeling like I maxed things out. I was like, I think I left something in the tank here. We should try for sub 4 one day. So
What's the
just
pace
decided to
for
go for
sub
it.
four?
9 minutes and 9 seconds. So you want to run 9 minutes and 9 seconds exactly to get it on the dot at 4. So if you run faster than 9:09, you're good. So for my full, I think I ran 8:51 or 8:52 for the full.
That's what makes it so much more crazy to Kipchoge that he was
Oh
able
my
to do
God.
it in under 2 hours. Isn't it like a 4 minute 30 second pace or something like that?
Yeah, I forget what exactly it is. I want to say it's 4:43 or 4:34. I might have those inversed.
Mm.
Um, but there was a challenge you guys might have seen on Instagram or TikTok, but I'm not on TikTok, so I saw it on Instagram. Of people setting a treadmill to his world record marathon pace and trying to hold on for as long as they can.
yeah.
And it's insane. Like trying to run a 400 at the pace that he was running miles strung together for that long is super challenging. I don't know. I don't know how he does it. It's
Just
amazing.
not human. Purely just
Yeah.
not human. Like that's insane.
I wonder if they know what his mile time was. Like if he was all out mile, did an all out mile. Like I wonder if it was really that much faster, or if he was just able to run at full speed for that long.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if how much different his full mile is versus, just a repeat of that in the full marathon.
It's probably
Now,
something
Tony,
that they don't really test.
Tony,
Yeah.
for you, for this upcoming Jersey City Marathon, what time are you trying to shoot for now? Are you trying to beat 350? Is that the new goal? What are we looking at?
I'm trying to get as close to 3:30 as possible. Um, because my last two half marathons, I was really able to kick up the pace and my 5Ks improved. And if you look at race predictors, there's different charts, different things you could look on to see what range you fall into.
Mm.
And each one of them puts me between a projected pace during this marathon of 3:22 to 3:35. So
Okay.
I'm
Wow.
like, if I can get close to 3:30, I'd be happy. I think 3:22 is a little bit um, too much. I think my Garmin believes in me more than anybody should. Um, but I think as close to 3:30 as possible would be a nice goal, which would be in the neighborhood of, I think, 8 minutes a mile, somewhere around 8 to 8:05, something like that.
Do you think that from, I guess, the last marathon you did to this one, that your body composition has changed?
Yeah, definitely. In less than a year. I feel just way more efficient, just
Hmm.
getting miles on my feet. Like I could run at those paces before. The paces I'm doing now, I was capable of these workouts in June and in last February as well. But my heart rate range was way different. My body
Uh,
felt more taxed. So it took more out of me to get where I'm going then than it does now, which means
yeah.
that once, I go to push that pace, I think I'll have a little bit more in the tank now than I did then. And I
Hmm.
think maybe I'm a little bit lighter, not a ton lighter. I'm floating around like 182, 183 right now. And I
Okay.
think last February I was maybe 188, 189. So it's maybe, 7 pound difference at most, but it's still I feel lighter. I feel more efficient.
Yeah. And I mean, you can sort of see why like professional runners care so much about like cutting weight and being light, even
Those
probably
guys
to,
are
yeah.
super light.
And
Oh
that's
yeah,
definitely to like an unhealthy degree at some points too.
it can be. I mean, you can imagine the toll it's taking on their body doing all of that too.
Yeah. Cause I
Yeah,
mean, you watch the marathon runners, the fat percentage on a lot of those people is has to be minuscule.
Yeah.
super low, super
Mm,
low. And they're averaging like 115 to 125 pounds each at a height of five
Hmm.
five to 5'7".
Hmm.
yeah.
So those guys are super thin, super quick, very efficient.
It's sort of just mind boggling. Just like thinking of like even like a 2 hour and 15 minute marathon. It's like I couldn't even imagine
My body's not built for that. No.
it.
I would
My
love to be
body's
able to
built
run that
for,
fast.
yeah, my body's built for rolling and that's it.
It was built for swimming at one point, my body, but now it's built for just weights, I guess. That's about it.
Well, Tony and I are actually doing a Spartan race this year too.
That'll be a
And
good time.
yeah, it's definitely a little bit different. It's like a combination of a lot of different stuff. And that's what I like about it. You get to mix in some of the strengthening workouts along with the running. Because I could just never get into running by itself. I think it's like a little bit of a mental block, but I just don't really enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's hard to do if you don't enjoy, for
Yeah.
sure.
Of like the three races you've done, the 5K marathon and half marathon, do you have a favorite of them, or you just don't really care as long as you're running?
I think the half marathon is the best race in my opinion, just
Hmm.
because you could push yourself really hard. It's long enough to feel like it is a bit of a grind. Um, but then you feel accomplished after, and your body does not crash as much. You'll be
Hmm.
sore, you might not feel great, but you're not gonna like, have such a depletion of your glycogen stores or maybe, incur an electrolyte imbalance like you might in over the course of a full. And a
Hmm.
5K is fun, but 5Ks are so fast that like let's say you're off pace for that first mile and you're breathing heavy and you're exhausted, you're just going to grind out the next two and not have a chance at a PR already. Like you could bury yourself with a bad first mile, which is very frustrating. If you have a bad first mile in a half marathon, you got 12 more miles behind it. We could kind of recoup that.
Hmm.
Gives you a
So I
little
guess
like
It's a good in
recovery
between.
area.
Hmm. Definitely.
yeah, so I guess a 5K just less forgiving when it comes down to it.
That's a good way to explain it. Yeah, for
And
sure.
then going a little bit more into your running, have you had any injuries? Anything
Oh yeah.
lingering?
Oh yeah.
Let's dive into our PT brains a little bit now. And what have we had to treat on ourselves, Tony?
A lot of things. So two regions in which I'm lucky. One, since we're all PTs, myself included, we're able to see injuries come on and kind of address them and triage them instantly, which has helped me avoid a lot of the negative effects of overuse injuries. And two, I work in an outpatient clinic with three other clinicians. So if I have an area of my body that needs a little manual treatment, I could kind of hop on a table and be like, "Hey, man, can you come over and mobilize L4, L5, help me out a little bit? Oh, could you do an extension mob on my knee? I think I'm lacking some extension." So I'll start with like different treatment approaches I was able to implement on my own, just myself, without needing, the hands-on manual treatment. So when I was training for like Placid, I felt Achilles tendonitis coming on in my left calf, my left Achilles tendon really, but I was able to know what it was instantly. Like I felt it coming on, the inflammation. I felt like, overworked. The calf felt a little bit weak. My push off was weak in my gait. So I was able to focus on, an eccentric loading program and kind of triage that really quickly. So as soon as that inflammation started to pop up, did an initial deload, took a couple days off of running, did some strengthening, threw heel raises into my routine, some more flexibility training at the hamstrings because limited hamstring length is also linked with an abnormal loading response of the foot, right, on the ground. So it could lead to plantar fasciitis or Achilles related issues. Um, and then worked on those things, and that kind of cleared up quickly. Same thing with everything's left-sided, my left side shot. Left gluteal tendinopathy came up, and I actually noticed that because I was stretching on a mat, and I went to roll over onto my left hip. I was like, oof, the bursa on this side is super sore.
Mhm.
And I was like, this is weird. And I was like, let me do just a couple hip abductions each side. And I started to do that. And I was like, this side is weaker and doesn't feel great. And I was like, okay, we need to start strengthening it. That one caught so early that I didn't take any time from running off. And I just did a strengthening program. Those ones were easier. Tougher ones were lumbar radiculopathy, which I had in the past, which I actually got from hiking, believe it or
Mm,
not.
Ah,
interesting.
So I had no idea what caused it. I was I was at a loss for understanding the mechanism of injury, despite the fact that I'm a PT. So went on a hiking trip to Acadia with my girlfriend. We're hiking through Acadia, and then over the course of a few days, I started to feel pain in my back, and it's shooting down my right leg to my calf. Like, man, I've had this disc issue before. What I theorize is a disc issue. I've never had imaging because, as we know as PTs, imaging isn't the end all be all, especially if,
Yeah,
things aren't as
sometimes it
acute.
can
There's
do more
no
harm than good.
yeah.
exactly.
Why is that?
Why is that? Because imaging poorly correlates with patient presentation. Really poor correlation. I mean, if you're looking at a patient, we're gonna nerd out for a second, guys. So I apologize
I love this.
for the
Let's do it.
jargon and vernacular. But if we're looking at a patient who doesn't have myotomal weakness, they don't have any true sensory deficits. They're not having any red flag symptoms related to Cauda-Equina syndrome, right? If you're looking at that and that patient, you tell them to have a herniated disc at L3, L4, whatever it is. A lot of times that image doesn't mean anything. You just need to treat them conservatively, get them moving, reduce that radicular pain, improve core mobility and strength, have a positive influence of the biomechanics of the thoracic spine and lumbar spine and the hips, and then triage it from there. Whereas if someone sees on an image that, hey, I have a herniated disc here, this means something's wrong in my back. Conservative treatment's not going to fix that. I need surgery, which is actually one of the worst ways to handle those easier, less acute, less medically emergent cases, right?
Oh yeah.
And especially since it's super poorly correlated. I had a patient recently, he had a herniated disc that was leading to a narrowing of the left foraminal space L4, L5, and all of his pain was on the right. And it's
Hmm.
like, okay, we have this image. It's the opposite of what we would expect. That's why it's not the end all be all. We treat people, not pictures,
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
that
I
was
mean,
a
I
big
think that's
thing.
that's like the best way to say it. I think a lot of times too, it just causes a lot of fear, and then fear usually makes pain worse. Like any type of stress is going to make pain
Totally.
not good.
I explain
Um,
images to my patients all the time before they get them. I said, listen, what you're about to do and what we're about to do together is we're going to open a Pandora's box. I guarantee you, with the image, we're going to find something. You do an MRI of all three of us here, I guarantee you, we each got something going on our lumbar spines. Is it symptomatic or not, is what it's called, like what it comes down to. And if it is symptomatic, is it something that we need to treat surgically or can we treat conservatively? So I try to prep them with that, saying, like, you're going to find something. I'm like, shoulder, guarantee someone between the two of us has a rotator cuff tear. And is it hurting one of us or not? So it all comes
Yeah.
down to, is it symptomatic?
mhm.
Also, to bounce the ball back in your guys' court, what's the number one thing that patients with osteoarthritis say to you? What did the doctor always say to them? On
Oh
bone,
yeah,
on
you're not going
bone,
to get any better. Oh yeah, bone on bone too. Yeah,
on
that's
bone, on
true.
bone. And because our language and our word choice matters so much
Yep.
with patients, and it influences their perception of themselves and their capabilities and their ability to self-manage. So if you tell somebody something is just so wrong with them and in a place where it shouldn't be, that could set them back where it shouldn't have. We didn't
Well,
need to take that emotional cost.
On top of the bone on bone, I've had a lot of patients that will like their doctor will literally say just it won't get any better. And
yeah.
that's just ignoring everything that's not the bones.
Yeah, they
Like,
don't say what it is, right? So like
yeah.
it being the bones, true, right? We're not going to introduce cartilage back to where it already left, but your symptoms can get better. You can move better. You can get stronger. You can have less pain. So
Hmm.
we need to be more explicit with our words in a way and say what it is.
Yeah.
The other
Like
one that
it,
bothers me is when like orthos. I've had a lot of orthos say like, "Oh, it's wear and tear from things that have happened over time." And my experience, I've had patients who get afraid to now move and do things because they think like, "Oh, I'm wearing and tearing away all the pieces here, so if I just pull back, the pain should stop," which it will momentarily, but it's going to progress is what they don't realize. It's like, no, you need to, Aaron, what do we always say on this damn podcast? Motion is
Oh, I wasn't ready
lotion.
for a quiz. Oh yeah, motion is
Quiz.
lotion.
Motion is lotion. Come on.
I'm hiding.
But it truly is. It's that's the craziest thing is that the orthos just tell these patients some of these, not to hit on all of the orthos, it happens everywhere, but they tell them these things and it's so psychological.
Yeah,
yeah, and I
actually,
don't think it's their fault either sometimes. Sorry, Aaron.
the orthos or the patient?
The orthos, like if you're looking at the structure of the American healthcare system now we're getting into a crazy topic, but they see so many patients in a day and they need to succinctly explain what is going on with the patient in a very complicated case very quickly. That's going to introduce a lot of margin for error. If you're not very good with your diction and your word choice, and then if that brief interaction isn't handled the way it should be, you're going to leave a impression on the patient that they're not going to be able to handle those symptoms themselves. And
Yeah.
that might not even be their intention, but that's what ends up happening by nature of how those visits go and how quickly they're handled.
Yeah,
Oh
there's
yeah.
definitely a lot of problems. Not only that, I mean, I'm sort of going against doctors. I lost my train of thought completely.
It's all
Just
the
ignore me.
quizzing. It's all the quizzing.
You
I
didn't
was
see,
like,
you didn't
Broke
see
my
what
the
do they
brain.
say?
numbers.
What do we say?
Um,
The numbers,
Oh,
Aaron.
I
What do they
but
find
mean?
I find for my population with geriatrics that a lot of doctors are just like you're old, so you're not going to get any better, and will put no effort into it.
that's frustrating because I feel like they write it off because it's almost easier too.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I almost tend just with the years of being in geriatrics, I almost tend to expect that the doctor is just going to sort of give up on the person and not try to do anything that'll actually help aside from like, oh yeah, we'll give you a shot. Oh, that didn't work. That's too bad. You're not going to get any
Yeah.
better. And they will refer for PT sometimes, but then if like a PT asks them a question, they won't really listen to you either. They'll be like, "Oh, they're old. That's going to happen." I mean, I think I did. Tommy, did I ever give the story about the lady with the high heart rate?
I believe you told me about it.
Yeah. So I had a patient whose heart rate was 150. And for those of you who don't know, average heart rate is 60 to 100. Um, if your heart rate's over 100 resting, you should probably go to the hospital or you should probably get it checked like as soon as you can. This lady's was 150, and we had a doctor in the building, or a physician, I should say. And I went up to him and I was like, "Yeah, this lady's heart rate's 150. She's feeling fatigued. She's short of breath. Just in general, not feeling well, dizzy." And he was like, "Oh, well, she has AFib, so that makes sense." And it was like, it's 150. Like, it's not like this is anything normal. So I think like eventually he went like a few hours later and then changed her heart rate meds. So because she had an anti-arrhythmic. Is that right? Yeah, anti-arrhythmic medication. So like that turned out okay. But then every time she told him that like there was an issue with her blood pressure monitor that he gave her, they would just sort of ignore it. And then she ended up in the hospital like a few weeks later. Luckily, it was weeks. Um, and because of all these things, like, and I think the big thing that it finally was that she actually didn't eat like pretty much at all. Like she'd barely have any food. So her heart wasn't working efficiently. Um, she didn't have a fuel for her system. So that's why she was feeling dizzy and lightheaded and out of it. And that's
Mhm.
something that like if you actually spend time with someone you could figure out and talk to a
Yeah.
person instead of just being like, oh, they're old, they have AFib.
Yeah. Deserves a deep dive and it doesn't deserve a quick look.
No,
Yeah.
it's things you have to
That's
kind of
frustrating.
just delve into a little bit more. All right, Tony, tailoring it back to your injuries. I had a question about the Achilles tendonitis.
Mhm.
During that time training for the marathon when that happened, how far out were you and how did that have to like adjust your training?
So I was pretty early in the training. Probably happened. I remember it being cold out, so I can't remember the exact month. It had to be February or March when that started to flare up. So I had to do like a 1 to 2 week deload to where I did back off my mileage a little bit, focus on strengthening, and then from there progressively kept strengthening. So the pain didn't exactly go away completely for maybe 4 weeks, but
Okay.
I would say from that 1 to 2 week deload, it was kind of like if we're looking at like the pain monitoring model, like keeping everything less than a 4 out of 10 pain on the numeric rating scale or VAS visual analog scale, somewhere in that range. I was below that comfortably with running after that 1 to 2 weeks, and then by 4 weeks, it was pretty negligent.
All right.
Yeah.
So in a PT like aspect, it was a pretty quick turnaround for some kind of like a tendonitis issue that could have ramped up into something a little bit more serious. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen tendonitis issues that just want to go on forever and ever.
It was super quick, just because I recognized it so early. Like when it first started, it wasn't so bothersome that it actually made me want to stop. So if I didn't know what it was, I would have just kept ripping miles through it. I would have kept doing all my workouts. I wouldn't have stopped. And then that tendonitis would have became more and more acute, more and more inflamed, probably progressed over the course of the next few weeks to where then it would have stopped me from running. Then I would have, seen a PT or an ortho if I wasn't already a PT, and then would have started the clock on addressing whatever strength and mobility deficits were kind of contributing to it. So by getting out ahead of it and almost fixing it in an anticipatory manner, as opposed to a reactionary manner, that definitely helped.
So another sort of pop-up question here, but how do you think you or our viewers can help prevent injuries better, just in general?
I would say use direct access with PTs. Just
Hmm.
use it. Like if you feel a small ache or pain come on, don't wait until it becomes a big issue. Usually the wait to go see an orthopedist is a while, especially a good orthopedist who specializes in a body area. A lot of PTs at outpatient clinics have, same week availability for appointments. So if I was just, a normal recreational runner, didn't have a background in PT, I felt this pain in my Achilles tendon pop up. I didn't know what it was. It wasn't super severe, but I'm like, I should go get this checked out. If I went to go see PT, I could have, been told what it probably was, been prescribed a similar program that I just prescribed myself, and then save myself having the hassle of addressing a more acute tendonitis down the line.
That
So
makes
I would
sense.
say primary visits with PT, direct access. I really think you could help those things.
So I'm little Johnny and I have insurance. Will insurance cover my direct access?
Yes, almost every insurance covers direct access, even Medicare actually covers direct access. You could do an initial evaluation with Medicare direct access, the caveat being, in order to continue seeing that patient after that and qualify for Medicare reimbursement, you need to have a signed plan of care or a prescription from a doctor.
Which
So,
is what?
oh,
Continue,
sorry.
continue.
So let's say you have a patient who's coming in with the injury history and they have a good relationship with their primary care and their history of knee OA flares up and they know that PT always helps. They could come see you direct access for an eval. You could give the primary care physician a call to see if they want to see the patient. They might just sign that POC and send it back and you're covered. And then that patient didn't have to wait for a doctor's appointment, which is huge.
I just did that with a shoulder patient that I have. They called me. They had my personal number. They said, "Hey, this is going on." I said, "Give me your primary's number. Come in and let's see if I can do it." And it worked out just like that. He's was on my schedule just like that.
That's huge.
Text
That's
Yeah.
me on a Friday. I had
interesting.
him on schedule on Monday.
Like my company, I won't say what it is, but I think in just in home care and even like outpatient home care, they almost act like direct access isn't a thing. Like they pretty much always say you need a script in order to start. Like they wouldn't let us start if we didn't have a script, which definitely seems a little fishy, especially in a state where we have direct access. Access.
I
I
feel
wonder
like
if they're
that's
just
more
worried about.
so. Go ahead, Tony.
Sorry. I was going to say, I was just worried. I'm wondering if they're just trying to create a standard operating procedure to where it doesn't come down to that communication so that they never have to worry about a situation where, a POC doesn't get signed or gets lost in the fax or whatever have you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
then
they just
it
want to make
becomes
sure
a
you
pro
get.
bono treatment.
Yeah, and then It's all about the money when it comes down to it,
Yeah.
especially the bigger your company gets, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. I feel like you find that more with like the corporate places get a little bit more business oriented like that, of course. And naturally so, as much as we want to help, there's of course the business entities that are around us too.
Hmm
Yeah.
Now, steering back to your injuries, Tony, we got some Achilles tendonitis, gluteal tendinopathy, radiculopathy, or lumbar radiculopathy.
Mhm.
Can't talk either, apparently. Is there anything else you wanted to go into?
Just the way by which I got lumbar radiculopathy and
Oh
had
yeah,
it
yep.
flare up again, it was ridiculous. So I couldn't figure out what the cause was. Like I was like, what the heck? It's really lighting up. And then the drive back home from Acadia is like 8 hours. For those of you who don't know, we're in New Jersey, so it's pretty far from Maine. Um, and it killed me. Just searing pain the entire drive home. Oddly enough, after that instance, running was fine. Running distance didn't hurt, didn't, but bending down to tie my shoes to run felt terrible. Um, and I was like, what did it? What did it? And I was trying to figure it out. I couldn't think of anything else. There's no one acute event. So started dressing it. A few weeks go by, felt good, started to get better. Went on a hike with another buddy. As soon as we started to go uphill, I realized that I was flexing from the thoracic and lumbar spine forward when I was walking uphill with a heavier pack on my back, and I wasn't hinging well from my hips at all. And it was just an aberrant movement pattern. And I had hiked in Acadia maybe 30 miles over a 4 or 5 day period with a bad movement pattern. And I was like, oh, I did it to myself hiking. And it was kind of a humbling moment where like, oh, we think, we're PTs, we know the right ways to move. You fall into a bad movement pattern with a little bit of an injury history. Sometimes some self-scouting is necessary to fix those things. So that was just funny. It's just like, could do jujitsu at the time. I could run at the time. Heavy deadlifts, fine. Walk uphill with the bag, crippled me. So it is what it is.
I mean, it probably didn't help that you had the 8 hour car ride too. Like, just more
Car
time
ride
not
was killer,
moving.
man.
Hey, you start out
Yeah.
driving nice and tall like this, and then gradually, like hour two, three, four, we all start to
Yep.
slouch in that chair. Same thing when we're doing notes.
Yep. A long
Yeah.
time in
Just
awkward position with vibrations usually doesn't feel good
yeah.
for the back.
As I sink
Are
into
you
the earth.
imagining that lecture from PT school from the
Yeah.
other guy on the tractor? Just like loaded lumbar flexion, long period of time of vibratory movements.
My
You're
back's
like, yeah,
hurting.
great.
I'm having flashbacks and a little PTSD at the moment. Thanks, guys.
There you go. Kines class.
I mean, that was a pretty great class if you ask me.
I mean, it
That
worked. I
I
mean,
love the
it's years
class.
later and it's stuck. Yeah,
Yeah, more so just the PTSD from studying for the NPTE, but it's I remember that lecture.
I get
Now,
that.
another thing, I guess, injury related, sort of just for our viewers too, is you hear all the time like running's bad for your knees. Um, and it's like not worth it in the long term because eventually you'll be old and your knees will be decrepit and terrible. What do you think about that?
Some merit to it. So, so I have
No.
a history of meniscus injury in my left knee. So I tore the lateral meniscus in my left knee probably when I was 12. That's when I first remember that knee jamming up on me and giving me issues and really having that locking and clicking. And I was playing soccer at the time and just kind of, you power through it, you ice it, you just keep moving. It'll get better. And then eventually I did have it checked out after it just kept flaring up my senior year of high school. Then I had a meniscectomy surgery on the lateral meniscus, right? So they took out roughly the rear 45%, I think, because of I want to say it was a bucket handle tear. I can't remember the type of tear, honestly, of the lateral meniscus. So with that being said, I lost some terminal knee extension on that knee because I didn't do BT after I should have, was not educated at the time. Um, and I love running, but I am dealing with the effects of, a little bit of degradation of the cartilage on that side. That meniscus is kind of that pillow, that shock absorber between the upper leg bone, lower leg bone, between the femur and the tibia. So without that shock absorber there, the joint's taking the brunt of the force a little bit. And, I do have some joint swelling from time to time. I do have joint line irritation and tenderness. Probably
So
am on the fast track to OA, but
I actually think that I would sort of disagree that long term it's bad for your knees. And the reason for
interesting.
that is when I think of all the patients I've ever had, the amount of runners I've had, and just for people who don't know, I'm in geriatrics, so older adults, but the amount of runners I've had is like none. Like most of my people have never run. Their main problem that makes their knees so bad is they never move or do anything. So because they never move or exercise, their bones degrade and get weaker because they're not stimulated. And same thing with their muscles and everything else really in their body. Their muscles got weaker from just years and years of sitting there. And some of it too is like um, you hear, oh, I'm going to get old and I'm going to get weak. So people expect to be old and weak, and then they don't do anything and they just sit around and get weaker. And so it's like sort of a downward spiral, sort of similar to the pain stuff, where you get an expectation that you're not going to be able to do things, and then you follow through with your expectations.
Yeah.
One counterpoint to that, I would say, is I have seen in an outpatient setting a good amount of runners that have needed knee replacements. Now, their outcomes are better, like
Interesting.
way better. I have a guy who used to run a lot in his youth, pretty active still, just really like cycling, things of that nature. He's had both of his knees replaced. He's in his late 60s, early 70s. And his outcome, I mean, his range of motion is great. His strength is great. He had a really great outcome from both surgeries. Um, so my point being is like, is the act of running inherently dangerous for your knees? Possibly, but like you said, you can get knee OA from lack of strength or excess body weight over time and other aberrant movement patterns. So there's so many different other things that it could introduce, that familial history, genetics. So if we're looking at those risk factors, if you do running and it leads to any of those injuries or it leads to knee OA, I mean, me myself, I'm at peace with the fact that maybe it will lead to that for me. Maybe I will need a knee replacement, but also know my outcomes are probably going to be good after the surgery. God forbid I do need it down the road. I'm going to, be able to reestablish range of motion. I'm going to have good strength. I'm going to be strong above and below the joint. Whereas other patients might not be, unfortunately, because like you said, they're not particularly active and don't have as good of a bill of health going into it.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Add in the fact that you're going to have a lot more muscle that's developed too, which is huge for those kinds of surgeries as well. It's kind of like a prehab in a sense that you want to be as strong as you can going into those
Yeah.
surgeries, like too. Um, and like Aaron, we recorded another video where it's like the idea of the wear and tear that we were mentioning before was kind of challenged in a sense where it's like a lot of it is genetic components as well too. It's like you want to be healthy, and a lot of it's just genetics of like, hey, this is the cards you were dealt. Over time, you're more likely to grow or start to develop arthritis and have joint and bone related issues than someone else too. So it's kind of like the unfortunate luck of the draw.
mm-hmm.
Totally. Like I had one patient, I was joking around with her. She was like, "Why are you doing all that running? Don't you know it's bad for your knees?" And meanwhile, she had a knee replacement and she never ran. So I was like, "You didn't run and you had to undergo this." I was like, "What? I'm not guaranteed not to need it if I don't run. And if I'm going to get it, it's going to be on my terms. I'm going to do what I
Yeah.
love, you know?"
Yeah, I think when it
And you're gonna
comes
be
down
healthy
to
doing
it,
it.
yeah, there's always a
Yeah.
gray area with all the stuff. Like you never really know what's going to happen to you. So
No,
as far
it's
as
wild. Like,
exercise wise, you should just do it.
and it's
It's
honestly like, especially as you start to get older too. Like seeing like Aaron, your population. Like, I'm sure you've seen some like geriatric folks who are definitely like in their 70s and 80s, and they're not in the greatest shape. And then comparison is the guy who's always on TV right now. Look at RFK. I mean, that guy's in his 70s and he can do more pull-ups than most 70-year-olds that I know.
yeah.
Yeah, consistency, exercising, eating healthy tends to help in the long term.
Oh yeah, man.
Um, hmm. So I have a very important question for you. So I'll start it off with a little story. So I went on a 6 mile run and I came back and my nipples were in pain.
Chafed.
They were, I almost felt like they were bleeding. Now they were not bleeding. Um, but they were sore for like 3 days, and I even had a wound on my areola on my right
Oh,
nippy.
Oh,
Yeah,
God
like it
help
was like
me.
a little wound. So this is important for all the viewers too.
yeah.
How can you prevent some chafing nippies while you're running?
Very important. Body glide, Vaseline, deodorant, whatever you do, put it over those nipples.
Quick
Keep
and
them,
easy. Wear your
keep them
Vaseline, people.
lubricated.
Who would have
Yeah.
Tony
thought
always
that?
has his Vaseline on hand.
Even when I'm not running, in case I might run, just pre-Vaseline at all times. Nah, but
Who knew? Who knew? Tony's
you
greased up in
know,
the clinic all the time.
just ruining every dress shirt I have.
It's
Um,
actually so we had a Super Bowl party yesterday at Tony's house, and I caught him in the bathroom just rubbing Vaseline on his nipples.
I had to reapply, Aaron. We were going in the second quarter. I was going to grab some wings. You got to do it before your hands get dirty.
The up
Yep,
and down
yep.
cheering and whatnot. It gives it a little bit of
Absolutely.
friction, of course. Yeah.
Now,
It's
Aaron, I had a similar thing pop up one time. So I never had the nipples thing. I don't know why. Um, I've gotten lucky to this point to where they haven't chafed. But one time I was down the shore at my friend's shore house and it was hot outside, but then it was also raining. So I was like, I'm gonna wear this, long sleeve I have. It's a little bit of thicker material. It was like in the 70s. And I had a 10-mile run and I ran down the road all the way back. Afterward, we were going out to, I think, a brewery. So I was like, "Ah, I got to shower real quick." I didn't feel it during the run. As soon as I got in the shower and water hit my chest, I felt it. I was like, oh, it is so uncomfortable. It's unbelievable. So
yeah,
if that's something that might happen or has happened, precautions and using body glide's a lifesaver.
Aaron,
yeah.
I think that you just need to keep running without it, and eventually you'll just develop some calluses, and you don't have to worry about it anymore.
I could have rock hard nipples,
24/7.
Just
not just
truly
because of the
habituate
cold.
to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's all about
that's it, man.
adaptation, evolve,
yeah.
Yeah.
overcome
Not
it.
just because it's cold outside. um,
Uh,
oh
let's
my goodness.
let's dive into something a little bit more productive about running and talk about some science behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
All
So
right.
my question would to you guys would be is what is your perception of running and kind of how you use it in your own fitness routines, and then how do you apply science thus far to how you approach running?
So for me, I like to add in. I do more of like weightlifting right now for my training. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
add in cardio, call it whether it's running, cycling, or the stair stepper. Every other workout is what I try to do. I have been guilty to say that lately I haven't been following that. Depending on what I'm doing. So let's say it's a running day, I at least try to hit just 1 mile at a steady pace. I don't do anything too crazy with it. So I don't really put a lot of science or a lot of thought into it at the current moment.
I put thought into it, but I don't think I go that in depth into the science of it. Maybe the biomechanics of it a little bit. I've been trying to modify.
Hmm.
Um, I do two running type workouts a week, and it's because like we mentioned earlier, we're doing a Spartan race. So that's a 5K and 20 plus obstacles. So I want to be able to do the 5K with obstacles, but running the whole time. And it's like you're going to be very fatigued. So it is very tough to do. So I'm trying to be able to do like 7 or 8 miles running and then sort of build speed off of that. And on top of that, the 5K I'm doing is all uphill. So or the Spartan race. So where I live, it's very flat. So I think I need more endurance than that. Um, and then so I do that one long run, and then I do one day where it's more like an obstacle course race type workout, where you do
Hmm.
like 2 or 3 exercises, run a quarter mile, and then repeat until you get to like 2 or 3 miles, just to build endurance and doing like strengthening type exercises at the same time. Because strengthening exercises are way harder when you're significantly fatigued. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I do try to look at my heart rate when I do it too. Like if my heart rate is super low, then I know it's probably too easy. Like if it's in like the 120s, it's way too easy. I need to go a lot faster or work a lot harder. Um, I also use Strava You could sponsor us if you want to, but maybe not yet. But yeah. So just to see distances, times, and trying to improve those as well. But that's that. That's my
That
run.
sounds like pretty good. You use the longer runs to develop the cardio base, and then you design those interval workouts to be specific to the Spartan race, right? So you have some element of specificity there to where you're alternating tasks between running and then whatever obstacle you might encounter during that race, which is good.
Yeah. So like an example of an obstacle course workout would be um, you do a set of pull-ups, you do some step ups because sometimes you have to go up like a high hill, then you run a quarter mile. You come back. I have Atlas stones from 50, 100, 150, 200. So it's just a big old ball. And I usually just carry the 100, probably about 20 or 30 yards there and back. And then you could also use the heavier Atlas stones and just do like a deadlift just in case you have to pick something up. And then I have like an outdoor pull up station thing. So I could do some pull ups sort of back to back, and then do another round of running, and then maybe like some jump rope or something along those lines. And you just basically go from there. You do some workouts, some body weight things,
Mhm.
and you get tired. That's
I
that.
will say one thing though, in regards to heart rate, some of those lower heart rate long runs could actually benefit you a lot.
Hmm.
So you'll hear on social media a lot of running influencers and people who are into running talk about zone two training, right? So zone two training is usually, 60 to 70% of your heart rate max, right? Your heart rate max, you could either do a true test to find out what it is, like literally find a hill and sprint up it, 4 or 5 times and have your watch or whatever you wear, clock your heart rate, see where it comes out to. And then use those percentages to then guide your zone two training. Now, when you're in that zone two, you're
Tony,
going to
can
be
I
using,
interject real quick?
yes.
For the heart rate max,
Mhm.
do you think the calculation has any use, or you think it's just better to do it like you said, just see how high it goes after doing something super strenuous?
I would say that's the better way. You've heard the one of 220 minus age.
Hmm.
I have a running book that has a different corollary for runners. It's 206 minus zero point 0.7 times age.
Hmm.
So they prefer that calculation. But like let's say, you just want to get your zones and th those estimations will probably be close enough.
Hmm.
But let's say you're, a higher level performance athlete or you're somebody who really likes delving into the science of this because you find it motivating, then go for it.
Hmm.
Test out your true max heart rate, what you could replicate, and then use that to guide your decision making.
I mean, I'm an elite athlete, so my heart rate doesn't change with exercise.
I forgot Nike
Just
sponsored
steady.
you. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They saw me run down the street one time and they said, "This man, he needs a sponsorship. He's going places."
You know what? It might have been the nipples that did it.
Yeah, that nipples chafing, running at a 11-minute mile. Oh, it was
A
beautiful.
sign of
They loved
dedication, really. Yeah.
it. Yeah.
My
Really
But
favorite
is.
part to just pause for a second is that we're recording this right now, and my girlfriend in the other room is probably wondering why I just said nipples, and that's funny.
but Tony, what were you saying about the zone two training?
Oh, it leads to a lot of the good adaptations that help you down the road when you do more intense workouts. So
Hmm.
one from a fat loss perspective, right? When you're in zone two, you're just beginning some aerobic work. It's pretty light. You're using what's called oxidative phosphorylation to supply you with energy, which is probably using fat as opposed to, freely available sugar or digging into glycogen stores, which is stored sugar essentially in the muscles and in the liver. So by doing that, you're burning fat, you're getting your heart worked, but not so intensely to where it's not going to be replicable tomorrow. You're not going to be too sore, probably, as long as you've had some experience with running or fitness at that point. Your mitochondrial density is going to increase a little bit. Excuse me, capillary density and number of mitochondria are going to increase a little bit. You're going to have those like cellular adaptations. Um, and that happens with exposure to those, longer runs at a moderate pace where you're not taxing your system as much. And it just helps you get through some higher mileage, some repeat workouts, and it's good for you because it doesn't take too much out of you. and then you could create the capacity of workouts that take that much out of you down the road instead.
So it's specifically to increase distance.
Yeah, or just make you more efficient. Just
Mm.
because if we're looking at like you could delve into the metric of VO2 max, right? It's like the amount of oxygen you can consume relative to your body weight per minute, and how efficient you are in using that oxygen. If you have, higher capillary density, which helps with gas exchange and just perfusion of muscles in general, and you have a more controlled heart rate throughout running, and you have better mechanics, like you said, you were working on your mechanics that also influences VO2 max. Those long like runs that are really boring at slow paces that feel pretty easy are just going to raise the ceiling for when you go to do those more intense workouts because all those other factors are going to increase and then your VO2 max goes up and then your capacity goes up to perform work via running, which is pretty cool.
It's interesting to me because I feel like there's almost like you have to be a certain level of runner to use that too. Because I know for me, like when I do like a 6 mile run, because I'm a pretty new runner, I guess just for the Spartan race, I don't really think I could go any slower or like decrease my heart rate that much unless I was walking, which I guess I could do that, but
You could, but I think you're right, as in like the tax to the system is going to be there at first no matter what, right? Because there's going to be that
yeah,
ramp up period. But,
yeah,
a month or 2 months into this, your body's going to start to adapt at those same paces. You're going to see your heart rate come down. But when
hmm
that happens, I want you to fight your natural inclination to then increase the pace. Like your inclination is going to be like, oh, my heart rate was in the 150s and I was running 11s. Now I'm running 11s and my heart rate's in the 130s. I'm going to kick it to a 10-30 mile or a 10-20. It's like, no, no,
Mm.
no. Spend some more time at those 11s and those adaptations are going to continue to occur. Don't tax your system too much. It's going to raise that ceiling. It's going to make you more efficient over time.
Well, that's like I think I mentioned it to you earlier, but for the viewers, I was telling Tony how last week I was doing the 6 mile run and 11-minute miles, and I had like a average heart rate of like 165, and this week it was like 159. So it actually did decrease over the week, and it just felt physically easier too. So that does
Yeah.
make sense, like you said. Stick there a little bit longer than you expect, and actually is going to help in the long run.
There's an old adage to run fast, you need to run far, and in order to run far, you need to run slow. So in
Hmm.
order to run fast, you got to run slow. It's a little bit of an
Yeah.
oxymoron, but it works. And you'll hear people also talk about the 80-20 principle. 80% of your workouts should be very easy at these lower intensities near zone two. And then 20% of your workouts should be about capitalizing on the ceiling or the roof that you raised from those longer workouts.
Interesting.
That is really interesting. Oh, I'm actually curious now. I'm gonna get my Apple Watch back up and running and start to see what like my heart rate is when I am running because I was never paying attention to it, but now I'm genuinely curious.
Hmm.
It changes a lot, and sleep matters a ton, though, also. Like I find that sometimes if I'm well recovered, like I'm hydrated and I had enough carbs and I slept well, on a longer run at a moderate pace, my heart rate is chilling. I'm relaxed. I feel good. There's been some mornings where I didn't sleep enough. I didn't eat enough the day before, not hydrated as much as I should be. My heart rate could be 20, 25 beats faster per mile
Hmm.
at the same exact pace, just because all those other variables that I have control over, I didn't do a good job handling them.
No, we talked to my brother about this actually 2 weeks ago. But do you find a time of day that's best for you for working out?
So it depends on the workout. Lifting weights, I'm super weak in the morning for some reason. Um, I don't feel good moving weights in the morning. The opposite is true for running. For running, morning
Interesting.
is when I'm the best. Like if I'm able to wake up, get a meal in, get some coffee, let it digest, I could rip miles and I feel really good and I can go at a faster pace. If I'm moving weights, I need more time to get the blood. I feel stiff. I feel like I don't have the power there. I'm just like mentally, I'm not as, I think, motivated and in it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say I'm a night lifter, I'm a morning runner.
I think I could see that now more as I've like been running more. Like I almost like to just get it out of the way. I mean, some of it's with the weather too. Like if it's dark, I don't want to go out in the dark.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm having another brain fart. Yeah, like if it's dark, you just don't want to go out in the dark. But I do just feel better just getting it out of the way for the day.
It's gonna
Yeah.
sound
Whereas
really
like,
No,
weird, and I swear this
Mhm.
isn't a joke. I find that I run faster after work at night because it's dark out, and I don't want to stay out there.
is that a
Adrenaline helps
necessity?
out.
You're just like, I just got to get this done, man.
It's more
I
like
think
I'm afraid
some
of the dark, and I'm like, I don't know who's behind me, so I gotta finish this as fast. It's like the old, like, you know what, like predator prey mentality. It's just like right now I could be prey, and I gotta get out of here.
I think some of it for me is like I usually like I try not to do like back and forth and back and forth. Like I try to do like an out and back type of thing.
Mhm.
And if I'm in the middle of nowhere, like all I need is a coyote to come, like fly, a group of coyotes to come running around the corner and just kill me. Because there are coyotes where I live.
We're gonna make sure that Danielle has some life insurance out on you before you go on your next run.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. That's why I go in the
Very
middle of the day.
important. Do you guys, if you do run at night, headlamps and vests, or do you have them?
If I do run at night, I do it close to the house. I do. That's when I do my obstacle course workouts. Like I'll probably actually do one tonight.
My neighborhood
Wow.
is decently
That's
lit up, so I just run out and nothing. So
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
don't
I'm a
even.
big vest guy. Just always make yourself visible. People are always on their phone way too much. Makes me nervous when
Well, I
they're
think it.
smart.
driving.
Part of it for me is I am on a dead end, so
That is nice.
most of the time, no one's gonna run me over.
I'm in a pretty
So,
quiet neighborhood, but there's no sidewalks, so maybe I should look into that.
mhm. Now think we're getting pretty close to wrapping up here. Tony, did you want to talk about anything else in our last few minutes here?
Nothing in particular regarding the running. Do you guys have any other questions about science related, or what do you want to do with our last few moments together?
I feel like we
Uh,
have to do something fun.
oh, okay.
All right.
Now, do I have anything fun? Oh, our fun story that we did with my brother as well. What's your funniest story from the last, I guess, year of work, home, life?
Oof. Well, the story was funny to me. It might not be funny to other people, but I think you guys will get a kick out of it. You know my sense of humor. I could be kind of have a dark sense of humor about myself sometimes. So those of you who don't know, I'm missing fingers on my right hand, right? So I had what's called, well, have technically what's called an AV malformation, extra veins and arteries in the area of the body where they shouldn't. They only could treat it by amputating. Therefore, they had to take part of the hand off. So I manage and I'm a clinic director at a clinic. So an older patient comes in, real like greatest generation type of guy. He's like 88 or 90. And he's talking, I need to set up PT. My knees are no good, ironically, knee OA. Um, and he's like, could you take down my information? He talks like that quick, like that old school type of talk. And I was like, I like this guy. He's real like, real type A go-getter type of guy, old school. And then I'm writing and I still write with my right hand despite the missing fingers. And he goes, whoa, missing fingers on your hand? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, that's one hell of a handicap. I just looked at him, and I was standing there with an aide, and my aide didn't know my sense of humor. And then the aide just gets pale white. He freezes. He's like, "Oh my God!" And I start dying, and I start laughing. I was like, "Nah, don't let it slow me down that much." I was like, "This hand might be treating you. Might be treating you. You got to be careful using handicap." And he's like, "Oh," and we were joking around about it. And then he ended up coming in for treatment. He was a cool guy. But every once in a while, you get one of those hot potato statements where you don't
Yeah.
know, like you don't know how to take it, and you got to kind of roll with it. You're like, "Wow, he just said that." All right, we're gonna roll with it here.
Honestly, they sort of make me laugh one day, or
It wa-
they
it
laugh when they happen.
it was funny. I'm not gonna lie. It came out of left field. It was kind of awesome. But
So that actually reminds me of when we were in school, and I'm sure you remember this too. But we had a lady come in to talk about amputees, and one of the first questions she asked everyone was like, "All right, everybody, can you raise your hand if you know an amputee?"
Oh
No
no.
one raised their hand,
and
and
I
then
was like,
Tony
guys,
Tony was just like, "I think you raised your hand."
yeah.
That had the amputee, and it was just like,
I think I said
guys.
like all of you should have your hand up right now,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
everyone was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Oh
yeah,
yeah!" They were
yeah,
like, it's like
That
everyone
is that's
forgot. They were like,
gold.
"Oh man."
that was so funny. I don't even know if the teacher reacted to that either. It was
I had
like,
no idea how to handle it. She was like, I didn't. Yeah, she didn't see it coming.
but it
That
does
is
show like
great.
how you get to know someone you don't even realize anymore that they have something like that.
Yeah, I kind of like
Yeah,
that people forget about that. It's kind of nice.
I only think about that every time I see you, actually.
Yeah.
that's
Every time we shake
you're a
hands, and then it
terrible
slowly
person.
fades from your memory until later.
um, well, I think that is everything for today.
Yeah.
Uh, Dr. Tom.
No, as I said, I agree. I think that about wraps it up right there. I always love a good sense of humor. I always love a good dark sense of humor. So Tony fits right in with us.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
I appreciate
Well,
you guys having me on.
thank you. Thank you for coming. Thanks for everyone for watching. If you did, we're available on Spotify and on YouTube. Thank you and
He
have a nice
always
day.
gets that in there.
Only with my left hand, though.